There's a Japanese training method so powerful that Buddhist monks used it for centuries to completely rewire their relationship with desire. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how to use this same system to break free from porn addiction, not through willpower, not through shame, but through a complete transformation of how your brain processes impulse. Have you ever noticed how trying to just stop watching porn never works? You delete everything, make promises to yourself, maybe last a few days or weeks, and then you're right back where you started. Why? Because you're fighting a battle in your conscious mind, while the real war is happening in your subconscious. And your subconscious always wins. But what if I told you there's a system developed over 1,200 years ago that doesn't fight the impulse at all? Instead, it systematically dismantles the neural pathways that create the addiction in the first place. Once you understand how it works, you'll never look at this struggle the same way again. Before I show you the exact method and how a man named James used it to break a 12-year addiction, subscribe to the channel, leave a like below, and if this video helps you, comment the word freedom so I know this content is making a difference. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1: The Man in the Trap. James Mitchell was 29 years old, worked as a software developer in Portland, making $92,000 a year, and had a secret that was destroying his life. He'd been addicted to pornography since he was 17, 12 years, 4,380 days, most of them spent in the same pattern. He'd wake up at 6:30 a.m. The first thing he'd do, before even getting out of bed, was check his phone, not for messages, for porn. 30 minutes would disappear, then guilt would flood in. That familiar shame that felt like poison in his chest. He'd promise himself, that's it, never again. Today, I'm done. By 10 p.m. that same night, he'd be back on his laptop. Different promise, same pattern. James had tried everything. He'd installed blocking software, found workarounds within days. He'd told his girlfriend he was working on it, but never told her how bad it really was. He'd read books, listened to podcasts, joined online support groups. Nothing stuck. The worst part wasn't the time wasted. Though he'd calculated he'd lost roughly 3,000 hours of his life to this habit. The worst part was what it did to his mind. He couldn't focus at work. His brain felt foggy, like he was always slightly disconnected from reality. His relationship was suffering. Intimacy felt hollow, like he was performing rather than connecting. His confidence was shattered. He'd look in the mirror and think, "You're weak. You can't even control yourself." He'd tried NoFap challenges, made it 27 days once, relapsed, made it 14 days, relapsed, made it 9 days, relapsed. Each time, the shame got heavier. His therapist suggested he might have an impulse control disorder, recommended medication. James tried it for 3 months. It dulled everything. His anxiety, yes, but also his drive, his creativity, his ability to feel anything. He stopped taking it. By 29, James had accepted a terrible truth. Maybe I'll just struggle with this forever. Maybe some people just can't break this. Until one night when he was searching online and found something that changed everything. Chapter 2: The Discovery. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. James had just relapsed again. After 11 days clean, he was sitting at his desk, that familiar post-relapse emptiness consuming him. He typed into Google, "How to stop porn addiction permanently." Pages of results, same advice he'd read 1,000 times. Find accountability, replace the habit, exercise more, pray. Nothing new, nothing that worked. Then, on page 4, he found an article titled, "Shugyo: How Buddhist Monks Eliminate Desire Through Disciplined Training." The opening line stopped him. You cannot eliminate an addiction by fighting it. You can only transform the mind that creates the addiction. James clicked. The article explained something called Shugyo, Shuxing, a Japanese term meaning austere training or spiritual discipline. Buddhist monks, particularly in the Shingon and Tendai traditions, used Shugyo to completely rewire their relationship with desire, craving, and impulse. But this wasn't about becoming a monk. It was about understanding how addiction actually works in the brain and systematically dismantling it. Here's what James learned that night. Pornography addiction isn't about sex, it's about dopamine. Your brain has learned that certain triggers, boredom, stress, loneliness, even just picking up your phone, lead to a massive dopamine hit. Over time, those neural pathways become highways. The trigger fires, and before your conscious mind even engages, your body is already moving toward the behavior. You can't willpower your way out of a neural highway, but you can build new roads. Shugyo works through 4 interconnected practices, each targeting a different aspect of the addiction. 1. Danshari, Danshari, radical elimination. Cut off the supply completely, but not through blocking software, through environmental restructuring that makes the behavior physically impossible. 2. Zazen, Zuoshan, sitting with discomfort meditation that teaches your brain to observe craving without acting on it. This breaks the automatic trigger response loop. 3. Takuhatsu, Tuobo, exposure training, controlled exposure to triggers while practicing non-reaction. This desensitizes the neural pathway. 4. Samu, Zuowu, replacement through purpose, redirecting the energy toward meaningful action, not just replacement activities. James read until 3 a.m. For the first time in 12 years, he didn't feel hopeless. He felt like he'd found a map. The next morning, he started. Chapter 3. Phase 1. Danshari. Danshari literally means refuse, dispose, separate. In Zen Buddhism, it's the practice of removing everything that doesn't serve your highest purpose. James started with radical elimination, but not the way he'd tried before. Day 1. The purge. He didn't just delete porn from his devices. He restructured his entire environment to make access impossible. Phone. Switched to a basic smartphone with no browser, no apps, only calls and texts. Cost $89. Felt like cutting off a limb. Computer. Moved his laptop to the living room. No more computer in the bedroom. Ever. Router. Set up network-level DNS blocking that required his girlfriend's password to disable. Made relapse require asking for help, humiliating enough to be a deterrent. Triggers. Identified every single trigger situation. Late night alone, not allowed. Bored on Sunday afternoon, mandatory walk outside. His girlfriend asked, "Isn't this extreme?" 12 years of half measures didn't work. This is the only way. Day 1 to 7, the withdrawal. The first week was hell, not because of physical withdrawal. Porn addiction isn't chemical like alcohol, but because his brain was screaming for the dopamine hit it had learned to expect. He'd reach for his phone 50 times a day, remember it couldn't access anything, feel a wave of frustration. His brain was throwing a tantrum. Every urge felt like being punched from the inside, but he didn't fight it. He practiced the second principle. Chapter 4, Phase 2, Zazen. Zazen is Zen sitting meditation, but it's not about relaxation. It's about training your mind to observe thoughts and sensations without reacting to them. The practice. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., James sat on a cushion facing a wall. 20 minutes, no music, no guidance, just sitting. When an urge appeared, and they did, constantly, he didn't fight it. He observed it. There's the urge. It feels like pressure in my chest, like restlessness in my hands. My mind is saying, you need to act on this. Then he'd do nothing, just watch. The urge would peak, intense, demanding, screaming for attention. And then, after 90 to 180 seconds, it would start to fade. This was the breakthrough. Urges are temporary. They feel permanent when you're in them, but they're actually waves. They rise, peak, and fall. If you don't act, they pass. By week 3, James had sat through 400 plus urges. Each time, his brain learned, the urge comes, we don't act. Nothing bad happens, the urge leaves. The neural pathway was weakening. The highway was developing cracks. The scientific reality, Dr. Judson Brewer, addiction researcher at Brown University, explains, craving has a beginning, middle, and end. Most people act during the peak. But if you can observe the peak without reacting, your brain learns the craving isn't dangerous. Over time, the intensity decreases. James was literally rewiring his brain, but he needed the third phase to complete the transformation. Chapter 5. Phase 3. Takuhatsu. Takuhatsu is the practice of Zen monks going door to door begging for alms. Why? To deliberately expose themselves to rejection, discomfort, and uncertainty while maintaining inner stillness. For addiction recovery, this meant controlled exposure to triggers. Week 5. Exposure training. James started deliberately putting himself in situations that used to trigger him, but with a new protocol. Alone, at night, he'd sit in his room with his laptop nearby, browser still blocked, feel the urge arise, and practice non-reaction. 10 minutes. Then close the laptop and do something else. He wasn't avoiding triggers anymore. He was teaching his brain, trigger present, urge present, no action taken, life continues. This sounds insane. Why expose yourself to triggers? Because avoidance makes the trigger more powerful. Every time you avoid, your brain learns that situation is dangerous. The fear grows. But exposure with non-reaction teaches that situation is neutral. I can be in it without acting. Week 6 to 8, real-world testing. James started going to the gym again, had avoided it for years because he'd relapse after seeing attractive people. Started using social media again in controlled contexts. Went to a beach with friends. Every trigger was an opportunity to practice. Urge arises, observe, breathe, wait, let it pass. Continue with day. By week 8, the urges were 60% less intense, but more importantly, they no longer controlled him. He'd learned to coexist with discomfort. Chapter 6, Phase 4, Samu. Samu means work or service. In Zen monasteries, monks spend hours doing manual labor, gardening, cleaning, cooking, not as punishment, as practice. The principle: you can't just remove a behavior, you must replace it with purpose. James realized he'd been trying to remove porn from his life without filling the void. His brain had all this energy with nowhere to go. The redirection: he identified what he'd actually been avoiding by using porn. Discomfort with himself, anxiety about his future, fear that he wasn't enough. So he redirected that energy. Morning routine: 5:30 a.m. Zazen meditation, 20 minutes. 6 a.m. Read philosophy, 30 minutes. 6:30 a.m. Journal about what he was avoiding. Evening routine, 8 p.m. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, physical discipline, 9:30 p.m. Work on side project he'd been delaying. The side project was important. He'd always wanted to build an app helping people learn programming. For 12 years, he'd been too busy, meaning spending his energy on porn. Now, the energy that used to go to compulsion was going to creation. By week 10, he was coding 90 minutes every night. The app started taking shape. He felt something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not pride in abstaining from porn. Pride in building something meaningful. Chapter 7. The Breakthrough. Day 90. James woke up and realized something. He hadn't thought about porn in 3 days. Not resisted the urge. Hadn't thought about it. The neural pathway had atrophied. The highway had turned into a dirt road, barely visible, easy to ignore. His girlfriend noticed. You're different, more present. What happened? He told her everything. The 12-year addiction, the shame, the failed attempts, the Shugyo method. Day 90 of being clean. She cried, not from judgment, from relief. I knew something was off. I thought you didn't find me attractive anymore. It was never about you. It was about me using a drug to avoid feeling my own life. But the real test came on day 104. Horrible day at work. Boss criticized his project. Came home exhausted, stressed, alone. Girlfriend was traveling. The old trigger pattern, stress plus alone equals relapse. The urge came, strong, familiar, but different. James sat on his meditation cushion, observed the urge, felt the pressure in his chest, his brain saying, "Come on, just this once. You've been doing so well, you deserve a release." He sat for 20 minutes. The urge peaked, then faded. He opened his laptop, not to porn, to his app. Coded for 90 minutes, went to bed. Next morning, he felt like he'd won a war. Not because he resisted once, because he'd proven to himself the old pattern was dead. He was free. Chapter 8. The Transformation, 1415 to 1530. 6 months later, James was unrecognizable, still clean, But that wasn't the victory. The victory was who he'd become. His app launched. 2,000 downloads in the first month. Not huge, but proof he could create instead of consume. His relationship transformed. Intimacy felt real for the first time. He wasn't performing, he was present. His focus at work sharpened. He got promoted. Not because he worked harder, but because his mind wasn't constantly foggy. But the deepest change, he trusted himself again. For 12 years, he'd been lying to himself daily. Today, I'll stop. Then breaking that promise by nightfall. That creates a fractured identity. Now, when he made a commitment, he kept it. Not through willpower, through the system. Chapter 9, Your System, 1530 to 1700. Let me give you the exact 90-day protocol. Phase 1, Danshari, days 1 to 7. Radical elimination, remove all access. Not blocking software, physical removal. Move devices out of private spaces. Identify every trigger situation. Make a list. Restructure environment to eliminate them. Phase 2, Zazen, days 8 to 30. Sitting with urges, 20 minutes meditation every morning. When urge arises, observe, don't react, learn. Urges peak in 90 to 180 seconds, then fade. Repeat 20 to 30 times. Brain learns, urge not equal danger. Phase 3, Takuhatsu, days 31 to 60. Controlled exposure. Deliberately put yourself in trigger situations. Practice non-reaction in real time. Gym, social media, beach, whatever you've been avoiding. Urge arises, observe, continue activity. Phase 4, Samu, days 61 to 90. Purposeful replacement. Redirect energy to meaningful creation. Morning, meditation plus reading. Evening, physical practice plus creative work. Build something. Don't just remove behavior, replace with purpose. Daily reminder. I am not fighting an urge. I am observing my mind. The urge is temporary. I am permanent. Closing challenge, 1700 to 1800. Today, James is 31, 2 years clean. His app has 50,000 users. He's engaged. He trains jujitsu 4 times a week. He meditates every morning. But the real victory isn't the streak. It's this. He's free. Not resisting daily. Free. The compulsion is gone. Your challenge, if you're struggling with this, commit to 90 days of Shugyo. Not 90 days of trying not to. 90 days of systematic rewiring. Phase 1, eliminate access entirely. Phase 2, meditate daily, observe urges. Phase 3, expose yourself to triggers, practice non-reaction. Phase 4, build something meaningful. This isn't about shame. This isn't about morality. This is about freedom, about reclaiming your mind, about becoming who you actually want to be. Subscribe. If this video helps you, comment freedom so I know. Come back in 90 days. Report your progress. Remember, you're not fighting desire, you're training your mind. And a trained mind is an unstoppable mind. If you've watched this far, thank you. Walk with honor. Face the struggle. Win the war.